Afternoon, intuitives, and welcome those of you that are new to the channel. And if you're new to the channel, you should really go back to my earliest videos and start watching there, because there's a lot of good content, very unpolished. And I wear the microphone on my head because I was too cheap to buy one that sits there. But a lot of good content. And if you find my lack of skill at doing this amusing, there's far more of it then, because now I'm less bad at it. But topic I wanted to get into today, it's often discussed in which countries, which personality type should live, and I'm not going there. This one's going to be about, like, what's the type of place where an INFJ should live and why? Like, what specific things? I'm going to give my personal preferences, but I'm going to defend it because I defend everything I say. And, I'm pretty good at arguing because I was brought up that I have to defend the things I say. Probably because I'm not a boomer. They can just say, I just know, and I have to have facts. I get all Ross Perot with it, with charts and all that. Those of you that are my age should remember who that is. Quite the eccentric character. And history proved him right, even though he was vilified. Something I very much relate to in my life. And, he was the guy we should have elected in 1992, and things would have been probably a lot better. He was a true compromise between progressives and conservatives, because a lot of conservatives liked a lot of his policies, but also there was a lot of liberal Democrats, particularly Union Democrats, that were pro-Perot, because Clinton was, and the DLC was basically the Democratic Party becoming the moderate wing of the Republican Party, and Clinton pushed NAFTA, and Perot wanted to stop NAFTA, and all those union jobs would have stayed, and the country would be in a lot better place. Basically, he was the second coming of Eisenhower, which, if we had another one of those, we could probably have a compromise between those two insane parties that are cults of personality. I'm going to shut up about politics in a minute, but let's be honest. The establishment in both parties, the Republicans all want to be Reagan, and the Democrats all want to be Bill Clinton, and they both ruin the country. Both of their policies are two different shades of neoliberalism, and neoliberalism is the problem, and not just here. My British viewers, you got the same duality going on with Thatcher and Blair. Yeah, you know, Thatcher's biggest accomplishment was New Labor. Yeah, it completely destroyed the opposition there. You're screwed when you have no true opposition, when the opposition is just a watered down version of the party in power. And I still don't understand what the Lib Dems' purpose is, especially with Blairite labor. I see a difference between, like, the Lib Dems and, like, the Corbyn wing of the Labour Party, but I really don't see what's the point of the Lib Dems if the Labour Party is going to be all centristy and Blairite-y. And, then you got your fringe people on both sides. We won't get into people like Farage, who is wildly entertaining, though. I will give him that. He is entertaining. But on where INFJs should live, which is what this video is actually about, before I start rambling on whatever comes to my mind at the time. There's things INFJs need, in a place where they live, and there's things INFJs try to avoid. And I'm going to get into my personal preference as somebody who's lived in a lot of places, and I'm going to discuss what I personally like. And since this is mostly, or partly, or half an INFJ channel, you men and women can let me know if you agree, or if I'm just, spewing whatever comes to my mind. But for me, as an INFJ, I want to live in a, like, fairly urban area. Like, it doesn't have to be in, like, a downtown core. Like, I very much like living in Arlington, Virginia, and as opposed to, like, downtown DC. And what I say for that, for one reason, is living where I grew up, everything was a half hour away. So I liked, everything I needed being 5 or 10 minutes away, or for the most part, I could walk to pretty much anything I wanted if I wanted to go out, which is rare for us INFJs, but when we want to, we're pretty responsible people. So it's like, oh, I can walk. And just the accessibility and the diversity of job opportunities that are in urban areas. In my case, specifically professional firefighters, because that's where they are. Those jobs are in cities. They don't have professional paid firefighters out in the boonies. It's just not a thing. So, because that's where the calls are, that's where the fires are. So that was a big point for me. But also what I liked about that area is, again, the accessibility of everything I needed. especially things like my hobbies. I very much like museums. Obviously, living in the DMV, right outside of DC, lots of museums close by that I could go to. Things I enjoy doing. A lot of historic sites. I love going in the old town Alexandria and seeing all the buildings and all the sites from the colonial era. That's pretty cool. So you have a lot of more historic sites in the cities. A lot of us are history nerds. Art exhibits are all over the place. That's important, and those are things an INFJ will go by themselves, because I go to museums by myself because I want to actually see the stuff. You can see, again, eventually when all this stuff's wrapped up, I'm finally going to get to London. It's going to be my 4th try to get there. But this time I'm going to do it. And I'm going to get to the British Museum because I promised 6-year-old me I'd do it. And I was supposed to live there for a month when I was 14. There was an exchange program between the Reading Museum, which is like 20 minutes from where I grew up, and the British Museum. And it was for 14, 15-year-olds, who wanted, like, aspiring to be like historians and archaeologists. Then the funding got cut at the last minute. Thank you, George W. Bush. Military need money, yeah, kind of thing. But that's Bush. He said he was big on education, but that was just to so his wife would sleep with him, because she was a teacher and an LBJ supporter when they met. If you didn't know that, that's right. One of your main conservative first ladies was super liberal and changed her mind to marry into a blue blood family. Reagan was a conservative too. I mean, a liberal too. Head of a union, in fact, head of SAG. And he did the old switcheroo under the force of his soon-to-be father-in-law, Nancy's dad. Yeah. How's that for sticking to your principles? Anyway, I digress. But that's nice, for me. But also, a place like Arlington, I really like that it's progressive and diverse, and there's people from all over, restaurants from all over. But most importantly, regardless of cultures, I really liked, and I think this is true of all INFJs, we want to live in an area where the majority of people that live in that area didn't grow up in that area. Like people that grew up elsewhere, whether it be a different country or a different part of that state or a different part of the United States, regardless, because we are independent people and we hate cliques and we hate groupthink and we hate the whole sheeple mentality. And that's what I have where I grew up. Everybody's, well, not everybody, but a lot of people, the ones who stayed, which is most of them, still run around in the same cliques they were in high school, still act like they're in high school, still talk about who dated who in high school. Still, everything revolves around high school, and it's weird. It's just weird. It's like, I don't care who dated who 20 years ago. I just don't care. I didn't care then unless it happened to be the girl that I had a crush on. But other than that, even then I didn't care. It's like, oh, okay, he's not my competition. I don't fucking care. So it's stuff like that, and it's nice getting that perspective and that culture of people from different parts of the country and people from different countries, and you're forging true bonds, true friendships, because it's different. Like, if you're relating to somebody as an adult, you truly relate to them. It's not trying to continue a bond or a friendship that maybe you had as a child that might have made sense as a child, but it doesn't make sense now because, children and adults aren't the same. So maybe two people were good friends as children, but now they don't make any sense as adults because things happen. People get drug addictions and go to jail. There's all kinds of reasons. But stuff like that. So I think that's a big part for us. Now, the other nice thing about, I'm going to use Arlington as my example, as a place like Arlington and places like that, maybe not like inner cities, but like places real near cities, is INFJs love nature. So there's plenty of parks and trails through woods and streams and all that witchy stuff that I like too. So I had the accessibility and all the stuff of the city, but then I got all the nature stuff. Literally, I had it in walking distance from my apartment in Arlington, which was awesome. Like big nature preserves and trails and places where I could do some witchcraft without being judged, actually, because Arlington actually had a decent witchcraft community, which was pretty cool too. And for whatever religion you're in, guess what? Same can be said for you too, because INFJs are in general very spiritual. So whatever your spiritual beliefs are, there's probably a group for you in a more urban area. Maybe you're like a more obscure version of Christianity. Like I'll say this, like I'll even go full like on conservative. Maybe you're an INFJ, and if you're a traditionalist Catholic who only likes to go to the Tridentine Mass, well, you're gonna find like a SSPX chapel in a city. You're not going to find it in the middle of nowhere. So now you can access your faith and, a community of like-minded people, and you typically don't get that out in the boonies, whether you're a traditionalist Catholic or a witch. See, we have something in common, and I think you guys should be able to have your Latin mass. Yeah, just leave the people like me alone about our religious beliefs. You don't like them, and we know that, but you do you. We do me. Yeah, things of that nature. I talked about walking places, yeah. And it just seems to be much more meritocratic. I mean, I know a lot of like the major cities have their problems, but we're talking about like urban areas right outside of major cities. Like this would be like Arlington, Virginia, Westchester County, New York, places like that, like right outside of the major city, to where it's easy to work in the major city because you have public transit too. I could take the tube in Arlington. Here, everything's a half-hour drive down bad roads mostly, because we do road repair on the township level, not the county level. And a few of them do a good job, and the other ones of them all hire their cousins, and they don't do shit, which leads me into the other thing. It's more, not only is there a bigger diversity of the types of jobs in more urban areas, and INFJs, that's important to us because a lot of our identity is wrapped up in our careers, but it's more meritocratic in places like this. There's less of a good old boys network. I know I can speak, it's still in Arlington, but when you call it out in places like that, something's done about it. When you call it out in places like where I grew up, they look at you like you're the bad. Like, this is just how it's always been. Like, how dare you? It's not corrupt when we do it. Like, they know that it's wrong, but then they're yelling at you like, how dare you report us? Like, this is traditional. So INFJs are big on meritocracy, and that's another thing. INFJs a lot of times can be minimalist. So living in a more urban area, there's a much higher percentages of rentals, particularly apartments, and much easier to find something that you can afford and suits your needs, particularly if you're single, because there's plenty of one bedrooms and plenty of studios for you, where if you live more rural, finding, a rental property that's affordable could be tough. And you think, well, rent's less out there. Yeah, but there's less properties, and you may only be able to find a 2-bedroom, or you need a 1-bedroom. So plus a lot of places out in the cities, places that utilities are included. Like I paid $1,300 a month 2 years ago in Arlington, Virginia, which is expensive as hell, but it included all my utilities, which made it pretty good. I had my rent and my Comcast bill, like water, electric, gas, trash, all that was included. I paid my rent and my internet bill, which was also my cell phone bill, because my cell phone is through Xfinity too. But yeah, that made it simple enough. And despite the fact that one may think, well, in INFJ, there's more people in urban areas, and we need our time alone. Yes, there's more people, but there's more of the right people. INFJs like being around the right people, and in a very diverse urban area, it's much more likely that we can find some of the right people that we actually can engage in and have those deep conversations that we do enjoy having. And believe it or not, even in an urban area, there's also more places to hide. Like if you're in the museums or occult shops or whatever it is, ice hockey, all those things are accessible. So you have all that to engage in by yourself if you want. And another thing is, in a more urban area, INFJs hate people in their business. We're very private people, especially when it comes to our love lives. In an urban area, it's not like a small town where everybody knows everybody and everybody knows everybody's business, because we hate that. We hate gossip. We hate all that shit. And for the most part, you don't have to worry about that in a more urban area. Aside from work, you might have that shit at work, depending on where you work and what those people are like. But so that's my rationale of the type of area that an INFJ would, prefer to live in if it's feasible economically. I want your thoughts on it. Please comment below. INFJs, I'm not asking you, where in the world you'd like to live, but I'm saying if you could live, super, super rural mountain man, small town, suburb, right outside of a major city, downtown core, what would you choose and why? To me, these are the attributes of an area right outside of the city. To me, best suits the INFJ, in my opinion, for our interests, our needs, what we're trying to avoid. Again, it's largely based on work. A lot of our self-identity is based on our jobs, and we have to therefore be where the jobs are. So let me know if you agree or disagree. Am I completely insane? Trust your intuition, INFJs, when you find a place that you think you best are suited to live, and don't listen to what anybody else is telling you. Don't sell out your integrity and your honesty to yourself, being miserable, trying to please somebody else when all they want to do is control you. Please like and subscribe and watch the older videos.